All right. Good evening, Springs Board. You're live and you are being recorded.
Thank you very much, LTV. Good evening, everybody. Prior to the start of this meeting, we were in executive session, meeting with our auditors and going over some hiring. So at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Rachel, would you do roll call, please?
Barbara Dean.
Here.
Eric Frederickson.
Here.
Emma Field. Here. Patrick Brabant. Kate Saris. Not here.
Yes. And is she joining us virtually for this part?
I'm not sure. I had to sign off before.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this is a work session this evening, and we need to hash out some things with committees for starters. We were employing people at our reorg meeting and realized we actually had to figure out what we were doing first. So we've had some changes in personnel, and we have some questions about what the various committees are in fact going to be. So clearly the audit committee stays in place because that is strictly the board members. And then we had a question about, is buildings and grounds, and then the health and wellness, how we were going to maintain the structure of those committees, right? Because
yeah, I think one of the questions was this
moving safety to buildings and grounds.
Right. I think Wellness Committee was a successful committee, and while it had relation to the health and safety aspects, if we actually went back, now that we know Wellness Committee is viable, we can go back to one of the more familiar state health, safety, and facilities committee, which potentially can roll buildings and grounds into that, potentially consolidating that committee. So we won't have to increase the number of committees, but the roles and responsibilities and the intentions of the committee can separate into buildings, grounds, and the health safety aspects can roll into one, and the wellness committee can stand for that. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like then it seemed like the people that have, there's certain people that have to be on the health and safety committee within the school, but they may not be interested in kind of like building
And the wellness program.
yeah, like nurturing a wellness program at the school. So it was getting a little hard to get the whole crew together. And I think that wellness broken out, health and wellness together is a little more relevant, and we would, we could get like a really good committee together and really nurture the wellness program.
What do you think, Matt? Does that work?
Well, the Building and Grounds Committee thought out both and Safety Committee. That's when we were going through re-renovation, reconstruction. We were trying to build the A list and the B list. When the school water construction got right now, the Building and Grounds Committee is basically a small committee. You remember, not much gets done in it because we have a maintenance crew lead that was overseeing the balance of the school. So I think it's a committee that has to be a full committee on that anymore, because we got our playgrounds in, we got most of the stuff down. We have a Building and Grounds Committee, which we have. We think we need to have that committee.
Is that required?
No.
Buildings and grounds are required committee.
No.
Is safety a required committee?
Health and
Yeah.
safety is.
Does health have to be with safety?
It's generally called that.
Well, we could change building and grounds to safe
Safety.
facilities and safety.
Safety's and facility, then we'd
Yeah.
have the mandatory safety thing and could touch on whatever
Maybe take the
facilities.
It is what I think recognizes like a health safety facilities committee, which would involve the role of buildings and grounds, but also the procedural elements that you get. So buildings and grounds is looked at as more of the hard
Physical
goods,
structure, right,
physical
yeah.
structural part when we first created that committee. And the health and safety part rolled into some of the procedural, environmental aspects. And so those have relation and were separated by those committees committees, but now they can potentially have that solved through health, safety, facilities, or if we call it something else, but that would be the role. Would keep that committee as the more familiar health, safety, facilities, and wellness, I guess, standalone. Is that what
I think health
Or
would
health.
still stay with wellness. It seemed to like jive when we were in those, the wellness meetings. And I really did, I think it was important to have the school nurse in the, the wellness committee. I think that's a nice addition.
Yes.
But I think, yes, safety and buildings and grounds is, safety, all the safety concerns that came up in our meetings were very related to the building. I think when we were setting that up, we thought safety was more policy for like things like a pandemic. That was more what was in like the front of everybody's mind. But when everybody's concerns arose, it was really more like maintenance of the building.
Right. So to Pat's point of there being less to do buildings and grounds wise, now that we have the maintenance crew leader, there are still board decisions and things that the board want to bring there. So that might just be a quarterly meeting as opposed to a monthly meeting or a twice a year meeting or something. But we should probably still be looking over those
Right,
items.
but even something like that, it should be going, my opinion, if it's something that the facility needs, as a board, we'll advise of it. But that could be to a superintendent or a business official giving us that information.
Right.
Just
without
like
it
a
being-
program, a program for safety and security is another committee you might want to look at. That we don't have before. But the building ground, we have a superintendent, we have a business official.
Right.
They're going through them for things. It's a matter of spending, of us pointing things out and what's wrong.
So maybe it's more of like a facilities report at a regular meeting where the
Right.
whole board is actually,
Yeah,
involved in a
maybe
discussion
just,
like that rather than a committee.
Yeah, maybe, that's
Right.
my opinion.
We did that a couple of times last year,
Yeah.
beginning of the year and at the end, we brought facilities in
Right.
to give the board an update.
And so actually, this year we need to be focusing on that 5-year or long-term, report for our building. But we really do need to be focusing on that as a whole board and not just whoever's on the committee.
Sorry, I just found the NISBA list of committees, just might help us organize our thinking.
I think it did make people feel good to have an outlet to bring up their safety concerns in the school.
No,
in the committee also.
I think the safety is a good point of it. We know
Yeah.
security, safety, we have
That's a great, I was just gonna say, if we do kind of like take
shifted
that
around.
away or shift it to maybe we can create a better system for people to put their concerns into the buildings and grounds or the maintenance stuff.
Yeah, but talk about safety and security. I mean, our parents want to come back into the school. They want to, they want to be more involved in the school. We don't have the answer, but we're still trying to figure it out. We can put more attention to that, how to make it safe and more secure. There's other ideas of how to do this.
Right. So here on the NISBA suggestion, they have wellness as a separate committee from health and safety.
I think health, safety and security would really, maybe we add in security there.
And then
to
just have a wellness committee
highlight on
by
it.
itself, right?
Why couldn't you, well, it's you could keep wellness and health together because they almost tie together,
We
correct?
can, yeah.
You can keep two committees together and leave the other one separate. These are all recommendations, right?
They're just, so this is, I'm just passing around a NISBA file that lists the, can
You want to see?
the committee, the
find
duties
that?
and the members.
Or you're afraid you're gonna ruin the agenda?
It will leave the agenda.
Okay. All right, then don't touch it.
Just copy this and health and safety.
Yep, Barb is right, though, the 5-year facilities plan comes under a comprehensive safety program.
Safety program.
Which
Okay, so
comes
actually, so the
under-
safety committee would be looking at the
Which
5-year.
comes,
right,
yeah,
okay.
under that role of health, safety and wellness committee. So if you separate it out,
On the safety aspect, you want to try to make, maybe I'm me for everything, you know that. Well, we gotta look, you try to do,
Yeah, because of the like.
try to alleviate one, but I'm looking at mean, that we don't really, they're not really working, that really have no need for,
Right.
you know. I mean, the health and wellness of the committee, you know, you've tackled a lot in the first year, you know. They come up with a set of goals they want to do over the next 5 years. Is there a goal plan?
We dealt a lot with one of our early goals, which, you know, when we look at what we're doing with our school-wide goals, the Health and Safety Committee was just beginning to really crack our 5-year plan and the goals that we had for that year. I think some of those goals like culture and wellness and community, we can still work on that. And that was one of the objectives of the committee that we had. But some of it was getting, especially the early days of the committee, we were talking about locks, you know, concern, you know what I mean? So we didn't actually get to some of the more wellness aspects from the practical standpoint of the school till probably November or even.
It was later.
It was actually later.
It was like January.
That's true, yeah.
So
Anyway, yeah, that, I think that was part of the feedback.
So if you look, you know, so when you look at the wellness, bring the community together, bring everybody together, right? Communications are different. That's what we look at that with. One of the things they want to be more people back in school, right? Well, so then you have to look at the safety aspect of it.
Right.
So that should be almost now. Okay, we have the great ideas. How do we achieve that goal? Rather than just saying we can go to the next committee. So does safety stay with you? We feel okay. How do we make it safe to bring this back in? Would that committee be a good idea to stay with that?
Well, it sounds like from you guys participating in it, that safety is really to you a different issue.
Well, that was about locks.
Well, I think if safety wasn't, a lot of the stuff we were doing was not like necessarily bringing in parents
Okay.
or like that we were brainstorming. We're not really bringing in parents. I don't know that safety is like a number one relevance to
Right, well,
the
that
wellness
example was more
program,
like,
but it's a,
did you fix the hardware? That was the lock or this.
Well, that's building the ground.
So, right, yeah, so we would.
We're not gonna have buildings.
We're not gonna have it around, but that's- yeah.
So it was important stuff, but you know, when you consolidate, you do have the dilution that occurs of subject matter where you start talking about a lot of different things. So it's not that any of these issues aren't individually important, but how do you best, you know, stay on track with the results that you want with the committee? And so, yeah, that I think we're on track. I think, you know, health, safety, you know, we look at, actually, it shows with Pat too, but, you know, one of the NISBA committees that they have is the, we had named it for years. We had a health, safety and facilities committee, but there is this committee that really is just focused on health and safety. And they recognize wellness committees as these standalone committees. And I wonder if there's more focus with that.
that's the other point. So it's asterisk, like it's a optional committee. When some are mandatory and some are optional, you have to abide by so many guidelines in the mandatory one, which also get confusing because you're trying to brainstorm and come up with a new, like, you know, all this stuff for the wellness committee, but then you're having to make sure you're touching on things that are completely separate, but like within the same scope. And then half the people are there for health and safety, but they don't really want to add to the wellness discussion, but they have to be there. And I think it would be better served to have people that really have like a passion for wellness.
So why don't you follow their suggestion of having those as two separate committees where you have health and safety, and then you have a separate wellness committee, and we'll just bag the buildings and grounds.
I think that I would be on board with that. Also, I think just we have to make sure that there is a clear protocol for people to report things that might usually kind of be coming through the buildings and grounds as, you know, safety concerns, complaints
Right,
about
but
something.
safety
within the
concerns would
building.
go to health and safety committee.
Yeah,
Right, with the physical.
but a lot, well, yeah, I'm confusing it, like we were confused the whole wellness committee because it was health and safety, but then people were like bringing up like locks that didn't work on rooms and stuff like that. So I guess there's just.
Okay, so, you know, Pat, you had indicated interest in being on like a health and safety committee. So that way, and these guys definitely want to be wellness committees. So if we break those in two, everybody gets a spot where they want to be. And any building questions will just get funneled to the correct area, whether it's the full board.
Right,
or
and
something
even
that has
that,
to
if you
have
know,
safety wise.
as a coordinator, if you talk about health and safety, there are issues in the board discussion, where you say, listen, we're meeting here, we're talking about blocks that won't work. access to the dump open. You know, how we handle it.
I also think, if not as part of the role of the communication committee, that it's great to have cross-committee communication, you know, where we can clarify some of those things that we pick up before a board meeting and say, hey, because there is certainly crossover, and I certainly will see compelling topics that come out of a group of people in health and safety that have a peripheral interest in what's occurring in wellness, and that could be a great opportunity to work together. And then, of course, we then share that at the board meetings.
So that. So, all right, so if we go then, we have the audit committee, we have the health and safety, communications, that was a successful committee.
So that, on that one, you have 3 board members on there.
Right, I was gonna step off of that one because
Okay.
I think Katie wanted to stay on there and Eric is on there. I'm gonna scooch off of that. We have district emergency response committee. Guidance plan,
Board members on the other.
which one, board, guidance?
District emergency.
So,
That might not be true.
That one needs corrections done. Christine Clear needs to come off of there.
Does a board member need to be on that committee? 'Cause it doesn't look
Didn't
like-
you serve on that committee in the past? No. It only really needs once a year, like over the summer, to solidify our safety plan and
It could have a point.
they do a walkthrough of the fire department.
And I think Tim had been on the guidance plan advisory council.
Yes, he was.
Right.
Usually that's your director of people personnel, but I could take that if you want.
I'd like to get on that one, the guidance one.
The guidance one?
Yeah.
And Pat, so you're gonna stay on safety and
I'll say it, please.
say health and safety,
Health
right?
and safety.
So Kevin Jones and Nick Nelson can come off of wellness, right?
Yes.
Leave Laura Burr. You want Laura Burr on there?
For
The
wellness,
nurse.
I think Emma was saying if she's willing, it
If
is
she's
nice
willing,
having
I-
her on.
I enjoyed her, like hearing her feedback. so I
Okay.
think
That was one that Christine was on. I don't know if Mr. Cal would be open to that one.
I mean, Nick was on,
Wellness.
I think Nick by default was on that. but
Yeah, I
he
took
really,
Nick
like,
and Kevin off.
He really seemed to enjoy it.
He
made
did?
wanna s- Yeah.
He really-
If he
it
wants
He
to.
was so,
He had
so
such nice
wonderful. He had such. good
Okay, we'll leave him
ideas
on.
and- yeah.
I mean, of course, a lot of these are
That's optional, of course, for him, but if
Okay.
he wants to.
Okay,
optional
I'll ask.
or the community participation, school participation, but obviously if someone wants to provide input and is enthusiastic, I think we welcome anyone to be involved.
Are we gonna stay on policy?
sure.
I could go on to the district emergency response if the board members needed.
Yeah,
It is needed.
it is needed.
Have you updated that? Have you contacted the members on it?
Yes, it's updated. It's on the website. It was sent out through Parents Square the second time
Okay, 'cause a lot
correctly.
of those people are not on Parents Square.
No, it was posted to the website as
Well,
well.
they probably won't look at the website. Probably not contact.
I can send out a all parent email. Correct, Rachel, to our parents to check the,
Well, I mean, like, I'm just looking at the emergency truck,
No, I'm good with this policy.
the emergency, the district planning emergency response team,
Okay.
the emergency response committee.
There's no words.
I mean, Bruce doesn't have kids here no more. Penny retired, right?
Jenna Versa?
He's still on, right?
Yeah, he still comes with Devin Toya.
If necessary.
Tim Taylor, he's just came back up.
Oh, the fire department's not up to date?
No, those are not chiefs no more.
Okay,
None of them are the chiefs.
so we need new chiefs.
You can ask him, I think, I did talk to Kevin, when he was, or something, he said he wouldn't want to stay on. He could reach out to the new chief.
Okay.
It's all common courtesy.
Yeah, reach out to the new,
It's all common courtesy to reach out to the new chief.
it's already there?
It's updated, but we will reach out. Absolutely.
Oh, it's updated from the sheet?
I think it's updated on the actual plan that's posted with the new
Reach out.
fire and police folks. So yeah.
The committee, most of the committee members you have on the other committees are parents in the school district.
Yes. So again, we can put it out to our parents to ask
The way to
for,
reach to get public involvement is any way to get outside the public. That's a communication. You know, to get it out besides the school, some of the other
phone call.
other stakeholders.
Phone call.
Well, are you still participating in the Springs Citizens Committee?
No, but they meet Tuesday night at 6:00.
I could reach out. I know Christine was very interested in safety. They met with us.
I'm not saying that committee, all these committees.
No, but I'm just saying, if you want me to reach out to community members.
If that group wanted to bring it up at a meeting that. the
Yeah,
school
and
has-
maybe we should leave out the law. Oh, I should have leave out.
Let Lauren know.
Yeah, Lauren, she's the president of that organization.
Okay. Yeah, I'll need her contact. I just know Lauren and Christine.
Does shared decision-making committee need a board member?
Board members are prohibited from serving on this committee.
That's right, okay. Technology committee meets every 3 years, and we don't have to worry about that just yet. Okay.
Which one is board member shared decision making?
Right.
Board cannot do that.
Yes.
And we need to take that off the description.
What is it? What is
You know
it?
what the topic will be for that meeting, I mean, for that committee this year? Last year it was the math committee.
What does it say on our website?
To be determined.
To be determined.
Oh,
Yes. But this was, that was important to be honest.
So
Yeah, right.
What the committee is?
Shared decision, what is the recommendation?
the shared decision-making committee collaborate with the board to develop a shared decision-making procedure. Efforts are reviewed every 2 years. So that's pretty general. That is
That is the,
verbatim.
yeah.
That's the duties, the official duties of that committee.
The last decision they were working on was math curriculum, and before that, it was changing grading to standards-based grading, working with East Hampton High School and big collaborative effort to look at grading and changing report cards and all of that, and then COVID.
Wow, right, okay.
So is the grading, is that something that should be revisited with, and how it works in conjunction with the other schools? And what was decided on for math program? Did we come to a
It was not
consensus yet?
designed.
Are we going to revisit that in discussion this year?
I think we ultimately have to. I think this year we're status quo, but with the new standards and next gen standards, new assessment, we have to take a look at the curriculum.
Great. Makes sense.
And so is this, being your first year here and, also doing something like changing grading and something like might not be an optimal time for doing that. So this is, I think, going to be more of like a research year for you.
Absolutely.
So in terms of that, is there something that the shared decision-making committee would be focusing on as a task, or is it more just developing, something with the communications committee in terms of actually making decisions and how the school is, I don't know.
I think it might be twofold. We'll certainly check the box of, we could come together and say, what are some school-wide decisions, major decisions that take place, and how are we going to do that? So just have those policies in place, but to get a clear focus and strategy. What we're doing with our instructional team is we're developing 3 to 5 instructional strategies that we're going to focus on throughout the year that are going to, through professional development and through growth and coaching, ultimately little pieces will add up to real big pieces by the end of the year. Certainly this committee can be a part of that as well. And we can really figure out what are 3 to 5 major buckets that we could focus on to grow students academically. I could see how that would blend and be a perfect spot for this group to come in as well.
Great.
If it helps, for the shared decision-making committee, members of that would include superintendent, administrators, and teachers selected by the bargaining unit, and parents who are not employed by the district. The teacher administrator bargaining unit selected by a parent organization is allowed. And of course, as I mentioned already, board members are prohibited from serving on this committee. But that gives you some ideas in terms of stakeholders that we can, or you can put out there.
So there might be more outreach to see who's going to be involved in that.
I believe so, absolutely.
All right, so we'll firm up these notes about who's on what, and we can prove them at our next regular meeting.
And I would say, we'll do some, advertisement to get people on the committee, but I think there has to be like an end date for people to sign up, because it became very difficult to catch people up as they came into a meeting. We spent like a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes trying to catch somebody up. So if there could be, sign up by October or I think that would be helpful.
So we had talked about having another committee at the end of last year, the Finance and Development Committee, for people who, or we have the group of people who are advocacy and development. Advocacy and development.
Advocacy.
Yeah, this came out of discussion in the communication committee. You've been such a steward of grant writing for us, but we came to realize in the communication committee that our school is in great need of expanding its resources and where we can potentially get financing from different things and advocate for the school, certain things that board members can't do. And so that came out in the committee. I'm not sure exactly the name, but there was mention of advocacy.
Yeah, and right, so we're talking about advocacy and other, income, other source of funding. So if it was advocacy and development, we could be working on grants and outreach other opportunities, including, public officials and,
That's
right?
Is New York State school boards have legislative? There's usually legislative committee in some schools.
So it could be a legislative and development or something
Yeah.
like that.
Right,
Advocacy.
nothing firmed up.
Nothing there?
This
Okay.
would be a committee that we have the freedom to create, but it essentially would help us cast a wider net with the support of stakeholders, whether it's in the community, in the school. Basically, are we missing anything that's available to us that we're doing? We're practicing due diligence, and we had some really enthusiastic, especially some of the new members of the school district that thought this might be a good idea and could certainly help us.
So that's a committee I would really like to be on.
All right. Send me some of your ideas
Right.
for
And so
wording
we
on
know who
this.
some of the names are from the communications.
We
committee,
have them.
that we have people who are definitely interested in that.
Any other board member like to be on there? Katie?
I think I would.
Oh, you would?
I think that if we
How
put
to-
these out sooner rather than later, we could put like a September 15th deadline on,
Mhm.
right? Like, 'cause I think like, especially with wellness, keep talking about this, but it was our first year, it was like
Yeah.
learning curve, but we didn't even get going until like, I think like late November. Because we were kind of trying to gather the,
Yeah, and getting the meetings on the calendar for the year, it may have to change, but at least if you have them out on the calendar, people know what the commitment is. And if you can keep them to like an hour and a half.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Excellent, yeah.
All right, moving along then to, actually, we are, since this is a work session, we do have public commentary or input on each topic that we're going over. So if anybody has any questions or thoughts about committees, you can say so. Okay, all right. So our next topic is going to be superintendent search, and that is how we are, questions of how we are going about doing that. So I actually had another phone call with the president of the Montauk School Board to get some more information on how they did theirs. I took some notes on that. So they only did reference checking for the top 3. They had one board member who did that. She did say that they had a couple of board members who were in education, so they were sort of aware of like who the players and who to reach out to, which we don't necessarily have at this point. They got about 30 applications and said it was scary easy to eliminate 20 of them. Why are people sending this? So the board went through the remaining ones together. They went through them all. It was like a 2 to 3 hour process. They got it down to 10 people. And they did an all day of interviews for those 10, started at 8, went to 6 p.m. just to get everybody done. Full board interviews, committee plus a teacher committee. And then there was I think for the final 3, there was another group that had admin, superintendent, district clerk, some other people. That was just for the final 3. And they called back 5 and narrowed it down to 3, and then brought in those for another interview with the board. And at that time, there was also a parent community group involved. Oh, survey was like sent swing to faculty. No, sent survey to faculty. There was some, which was done sort of early on to faculty and staff. In about October, and they were advertising for the position in November, and they had resumes by December, and started interviews in January after break. So this is, we could get on it before then if we wanted to, certainly. So this was, it seemed like a fair, somewhat manageable after I spoke to her, because once I thought about having to, are we checking references, who's doing that? When we had a firm before, we had somebody there doing background check, and suddenly it's on our shoulders. So it does seem manageable, but somebody did point out to me that Montauk did sort of have a ready-built list of applicants, which we don't necessarily have here. So, well, they had some in-house people. I think they knew of some local people who would be applying, which we don't necessarily know about. So if we're doing this ourselves, can we cast a wide enough net to really get a good pool of applicants versus working with someone?
Well, there are some people that applied for the principal position that have their district certifications that people really love too, and maybe that would be a better fit for them. I think that they're out there, whether we have them in spring school or.
So we would be doing, if we're not hiring a firm, are we going to be doing more advertising? Is it worth doing advertising in something like the Times or something else like that, where it's a big expense, but if we're not spending for a search firm, should we be spending money in that direction, or what kind of advertising? So.
Did you get a what was the cost to get a firm to do this?
I think it was like 20,000.
I forget what we spent the last time. I know we sort of.
That was 6 years ago.
That was 6 years. Yeah.
It was 20.
That was about,
That was 6 years ago.
Yeah. So
20 plus inflation.
And if we thought we were going to do that, we would want to go out for with an RFP, which is what we did last time, and looking at cost and
I think we have 2 things going for us. One, we found tremendous principal and assistant principal through the collective search that we had. I think we had a lot of interest, and people really came together. So that was a successful model that we can look at replicating. And my second thought is our board retreat is going to be able to answer a lot of these questions. I think one of our collective goals was to cover one of the NISBA topics of superintendent search in our board retreat. And at that time, we'll be able to ask a lot of the questions that we're posing tonight and get either second answers from them or more discussion on it. And I think that would be a good litmus test for our confidence in endeavoring on our own with this. And we have some second and potential third priorities for our board retreat, but that being the most important topic, we'll see how long we can spend on that and the retreat time that we have. And we should probably come ready with some of these questions because these are great questions to ask. And if we do that board retreat at the end of August or on the earlier side of September, we'll have the information, or at least more information that we can make a decision on that.
So now I feel like we should veer off and talk about when are we going to have our board retreat? Because we haven't nailed that down yet.
We should have, if we can get 2 or 3 dates together. So the way that we'll form the board retreat is the subject matter and the time that we have to do it. And NISBA will then be able to send us, what we're hoping to get is one of their foremost experts on a superintendent search. I think that's really the main priority. They'll have some core material that they'll go over, but I think if we, have these compelling questions and discussion, I see that being a lot of the time that we use. So if we can get 2 or 3 dates that work for us, and we agree that maybe in one other thing are the main topics. I think we talked about some other potential topics being maybe governance/finance, which is generally in their toolkit.
Right.
And I think curriculum was brought up because as Mr. Cutt was saying, that's something that, we can research this year, so we can possibly have that discussion as well. But basically offer that to NISBA and then they'll come back with us saying, well, if it's on this date, this person can do this, so on and so forth. But I suppose the first thing is when can we do it?
You sent an email out, you guys can look at that.
Yeah, but I don't, we haven't consolidated on a date yet, so that's.
So what's the consensus of what everybody's looking for? Do you have that?
I think that's what it is,
That was.
like the topic.
No, superintendent search was one of them. Finance, we also looked at one of the responsibilities.
Right.
of the board member.
Yeah,
Well, is that already now down to the?
Yeah, the government,
training.
yeah, their 2 main educational tracks are like, which covers roles, you can kind of, that rolls into that, and then, finance does too, and curriculum is brought up. So we can have like a tier system and we can see how much you
I
want
think
to
roles and
allocate.
responsibilities is always a good reminder, and we have a new board member who hasn't had any sort of in-person review of stuff like that. And
Yeah, they'll almost always pull material out for that kind of stuff. That's the thing they kind of do annually as part of the core material. So I think we get that anyway, and then of course we push our need for.
so I feel like we've done like 4 hours before, we've done from like 8 to 12.
Yeah.
So we can, but it sounded like weekends were a little tough for people, maybe.
Yeah, what was it for you?
My email, I did like 2-hour window one weekend.
So Tuesdays in August, just be fair. The concerts in the look up there every Tuesday night.
What's every Tuesday?
Up at the town, Main Beach.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the Atlas next week. This week.
Okay. So are you trying to work that into a board meeting, or are you?
Yeah, no.
Is that the location of it?
Yes.
Well, the only Tuesday that we have available is the 29th, and if we're interested in doing those things.
Don't do
August is
it on
full.
Tuesday night.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's the only one we could have done anyway in August.
So
And I think
next-
we have a pretty full August at that, so I don't think we should do that.
What can you do it, how about the Saturday when school starts? Like that following Saturday, school's on the, was it 8th this year, 7th, whatever day it
Ninth.
starts. Would that free up everybody's schedule?
I can't do that day.
But,
But I mean, is there any chance of doing it in August, but on a different weekday if we did it later in the day from like the 4 to 8 kind of thing? And had
I
dinner?
prefer that. That would
Would that, maybe a Wednesday evening or something?
What's this?
Thursday.
Wednesday or Thursday?
This is, I don't go to concerts anyway, but.
Well, really, honestly, out of the 5 Tuesdays on
But I might go
August,
see this.
there's board activities every Tuesday. So,
What's something else might really go there?
It's actually talking about that.
Yeah, we missed like the whole summer.
Yeah.
Whole
I
summer.
forget about every
Yeah,
summer.
like
we're here every Tuesday.
24th.
4:30.
So,
How would the 24th or the 31st
Well,
work?
hold on, we got the 15th, we're gonna go, so this Thursday's
all
fall.
right, so on the 8th, we're doing our superintendent evaluation. We know that, right? So 8th, the 15th, we have
Scope
another board.
The scope thing, then we have the,
Right.
on the 21st, we have a school board meeting,
22nd, the board
22nd.
meeting, yeah.
22nd, 21st.
Yeah.
In August.
What about like Thursday, the 17th?
The same week as the scope then.
Can we do it in
Right.
September?
Well, if our topic is going to be superintendent search.
I mean, we can do it during the weekend, I mean, we do it like 5 o'clock, but doing this in September, I don't mind. I'm
Right.
just saying, summer's, you know, I'm gonna be a summer person, one day.
If we weren't having superintendent search be like one of our main topics at our retreat,
4
I'd be
hours.
happy to do it like in September, but I feel like we kind of got to get a jump on this.
We'll talk in 1 week, right?
Well, I was talking about trying to do it like earlier in, like middle of August.
Like the 24th. Well, if we're talking Thursdays, let's just break it down to what it is. I mean, we're probably looking at the 24th, the 31st, or the 7th. And we might actually have to give them, this is just when we're available. We have to figure out when they're available. So out of those
So then
three,
you'd have to go to availability at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, by the East Hampton.
yeah. And going to 8, which is probably a little later than they're used to. You know, maybe 4 to 7 we could do. But, you know, we're gonna ask the question, but like ideally for us, are we
Pick a date,
saying,
I'll make it happen, just don't pick a Wednesday.
so Wednesday at
What
like
about the
6 o'clock?
17th?
Yeah.
No, Howard, what if I just tell them, is out of the 24th, the 31st, and the 7th, from 4 to 8 PM, is anybody unavailable?
But
Why
what
is
about the
17th?
Um, Well, we have
something every Tuesday.
something every,
But there's
I
no
wasn't including the 3rd to 10th, the 17th, and the 20, or 3rd, 10th to 17th, because we already had board responsibilities at that time. And actually, we even do that on the 22nd. But,
Yeah.
um,
15th, I mean, that's a fun evening.
What?
That's not like board
Well,
work.
that's
on
what I
the
was
15th.
thinking, and then on
If
the
we have-
17th would be
would be a-
like
Oh, is it a board work?
No, but I will be
need to-
back in town until
You are-
probably, because I'm using that time because we have to go drive 2 hours to that.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours home, I'm gonna stay over and not do that. So even though it's a fun thing, it's more time consuming
For
than
you.
any other
Gotcha.
first day, 22nd.
For the 24th, I would prefer to not do the 31st, as it's Friday, Labor Day weekend.
Right.
Or Thursday, you know,
Yeah.
toward the end of
End
the
of the
month.
month.
One to 10, school's not starting.
And there's no weekend morning that works for anybody, 8 to 12.
Weekday,
No weekend.
Weekend. Not for me
Not for you.
ideally.
Okay.
the other one's, I do the weekend morning, but if nobody else can, that's fine too.
All right, and we have to get Katie's input here, so
Right.
we're thinking maybe a Thursday later in the day. Right,
What do we have on the east? What board meetings? What's all this thing?
Superintendent evaluation.
that's gonna be superintendent evaluation.
That's the thing.
What time is that, Barbara? We're gonna put it out as a executive session.
Right, yeah, and I think there was something else you wanted to talk to us about on that day. Did we have another?
Oh, so we have other stuff besides that.
Did we have another item for executive session, or is that, we went over that this evening, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so no, it's just gonna be,
Are you gonna be ready for me that night or?
no, because we have to get together.
Just
and talk
you,
amongst
yeah.
ourselves, yes.
Yeah.
So that's not gonna be a long meeting that day.
Well, we have on the 8th, you have executive session. Well, executive session hour.
Nothing with Deb,
Not
just
with
with
me.
us to do.
So the evaluation, right.
Right, yes.
So the evaluation. Could you do it the same night?
That was my idea initially. I threw that out there, but we're getting a little close.
1 week away to get
Yeah.
somebody.
But we could put it out as.
But we can always move the evaluation. I said, it's only an hour meeting. We
Right.
can move the 8th to another night
Okay.
and free up that night and use it for the 17th or like that. And try to get it all done at
Or
one
we
time.
could just do the, from like 4 to 5, for
Right.
the
Yeah.
superintendent, and like 5 to 9, it's.
Okay.
Or even.
If we can get someone, so you know what, you have, let's see when we can get someone, what people's dates
So
are.
just, I'm gonna write down, what we're okay with. So the 8th is option 1.
Yeah.
From like, can we just say like 4-ish to 8-ish?
Yeah.
I'll talk to them about it.
Right.
And then as second and third options, are we okay with that 4-ish to 8-ish on the 24th and the 7th of September?
Yeah.
That's what we're in agreement on?
Yeah.
Okay, I will email them.
But the evaluation should be that.
No,
And we're already here. We're blowing out.
I love that idea.
Imagine time.
You're already missing the concept.
Got 20 summers left, so come on.
Make it worthwhile.
Welcome to a board meeting transparent. Giving its business to the public.
The board's meeting in public.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll figure that out with them, and then we'll know when we can plan more steps on the superintendent search.
Yeah.
All right. Whew. Anybody have questions on our topic B of superintendent search? Okay. Yes.
come on.
All right.
Just wondering, and this kind of goes right into the next topic, teacher retention, and are there any thoughts of having a less than full-time superintendent? And the possibility to say, well, right now, since we have a per diem, if we did sort of a trial period and said, okay, well, what if we try 4 days a week or 3 days a week or whatever different kind of option there are, and we have that sort of flexibility to see, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? As a way to possibly save money that then could go into all the rest of the staff. No, we don't have money. I understand that it's very tight. So that's one possible solution that kind of touches on both of your topics, B and C. And that's what I wanted to bring up for you.
Thank you. At this time, we're not looking at a part-time position. LTV, is anyone calling in about anything? If they are, just give us a heads up with any.
Okay, we have no callers at this time.
Okay, all right, thank you. So let's go into attracting and retaining staff topic.
I think it's
That's a big topic.
That's a
It's a
big
huge
topic. Who
topic.
brought this topic up?
Do we want to frame it a little bit for the community, Barbara, and that we've lost a couple of people
Yeah.
to jobs at East Hampton Town?
Well, this has been an ongoing issue in terms of salary wise. We are, not at a competitive level with some of our neighboring districts. And it is not unusual to see an employee go from here to a neighboring district who pays more. The question is, how do we address that situation and, give people incentive to stay here, but also be mindful of what's happening with our budget and, staying within cap, and how do we make that happen? It's a real, it's a juggling act that we're definitely struggling with, I have to say. And salaries, pretty much the only way we can do that. There's not a lot of other amenities that we can offer people. I know somebody had mentioned housing at some point. I don't think that's a viable option for Springs. We can't become a landlord and have housing for people like that.
And even housing, I was looking at East Ham's idea, and how we hold staff, I don't know. We have to find out. I mean, we got to see what the number's going to cost, what the bottom line is.
Yeah.
If we want to be compatible with the other school district, what's sponsor is, when our neighborhood school district is approaching our employees, whether it's a TA, security guard, or a staff member, or a salary, that they know we just can't afford it. Or can we afford it? The taxpayers will pay it.
Well,
You know, we had,
that's
you
the
know,
other side of the point, yes.
you know, we last year, we went over the cap. It was like $800,000. I think that's what our cap was, exceeded the cap. That was all programmed. And, you know, basically the salary's gone down. And we're gonna exceed that. I don't know what the plan is. You know, we have to figure out the plan, how to do it competitive, you know, and I think it's tough. We need a lot of numbers from our accounting firm, from Steve, you know, what's it gonna cost us? And bottom line is, you know, none of us want to spend money we don't want to spend. I don't want to increase the budget. But if we're gonna lose staff, then if we're gonna lose staff, we gotta change program. If we're gonna change program, that means spring school's gonna it'll still be the same school, but it'll be a little, the class will be a little tighter with more students in it. We'll be losing, we gotta cut down, we gotta cut the overhead down to keep the other costs down.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we're paying, you know, if we want to be competitive. East Hampton Town is running through the same situation. And the average home is $5,000 to rent in Springs for a family. Or in East Hampton. And the housing, I looked at that and I thought about, that was a great idea at first, but it's only gonna benefit, if you buy 5 homes, it's only gonna benefit 5 families. And that's only 5 staff members, whether it's a teacher, a clerk, a principal, who gets precedent? You know, how do we make, I don't wanna make that decision, who gets the precedent? New hire gets it? What about the veteran teacher that's struggling just making the money? You know, she's making whatever she's making, and she's just struggling to survive. Does she get precedent of that house?
Yeah.
We'd have to have 100, we have 100 employees? We'd have to have 100 homes to be equitable.
So we know that the train isn't working for us, right? Because it doesn't get here at the correct time. Would there be any way of us having a form of transportation or bus to help our people get to the train? Would that be any kind of,
I think the train schedule's at 3 o'clock,
yeah, that's what it is.
and I think it
Getting
comes
there
in
on
at
time.
7:10. I believe, because I know the girl at Columbia does, but Jessica does it, because the one in the cabinet department. But Riverhead actually changed their schedule. Their salespeople take the bus, leave at 3 o'clock there. And they're allowed to come in at 7. They come in at 7 by the bus, they take the train in, and they'll allow at 3 o'clock. They're talking salesperson in the accounting department doing it. They leave at 3 just to get home because they know they can't hold on to them. So school districts are feeling it, and every employee is feeling it. We're losing employees, you lose employees. But to keep this school going, we have to find an answer. Or accept what we can and can't do. We look at consolidating the high school. Maybe there's a committee we can look at setting up that. You know, it's been voted down. I think we have to get the advisory, that new committee you want to set up of grant funding. And there was a lot of parents who had the time, they said, to try to this consolidation thing again.
Right.
You know, maybe that's where we gotta look. We can't afford this. So Carla and Christine just brought up about cut a superintendent salary. Just say it's for a part-time superintendent salary, you want 140,000. Because that's what they're gonna come in at. Is that 60,000 worth not having if we have somebody full-time? I don't know the answer. Right?
Well, I think
You know.
we had a part-time superintendent before, and then you start, by default, somebody has to do the work that's not getting
Right.
done.
You know.
And it shouldn't be the board, and you
Right.
cannot have the board stepping in and starting
Oh,
to
no,
manage daily things when you don't have a full-time
Right.
superintendent. You run the risk when you have.
We just started with the hybrid system with Steve. You know, we'll see if the system works, if it's working well, it's not the system we're gonna look at. We don't know the answer, you know. But how do we become sustainable to the other district? It's frustrating when you see what's happening, you know. And then what it does is it brings the morale down of our staff here. The hardworking people, and they know what they're getting paid. We can't pay them that. You know, we just can't afford it. We're saying, because we know we did the numbers, but the reality is gonna hit us in the face. You know, and it brings morale down. When you're looking, I go to school over here, I get twice as much money. Because teachers and staff are probably right across the board. They probably all make the same with this school or that school. Within a couple thousand, maybe 10,000. If we took the health insurance, you know, you're shaking your head. But if you took kindergarten to 12th grade teacher on average, would be paying at least half the pay for. Can't go down to Kansas, but others next district. So is that, well, we're not compatible, how come we're not compatible? Right? And that's what everyone's, I don't know, you know. This is the thing we really have to look to. They take a lot of time. I don't think we have the,
We're not gonna solve it this evening, that's for sure.
no, and I don't think we're gonna solve it tonight. I think it's a great topic with such a vibe.
Important discussion to open up, because I think you mentioned, over half of our budget is spoken for when it comes to enrollment. And we pierce the cap to preserve our programming, and we're about to jump, potentially, if we're trying to be equitable with pay, jump right back into the same situation we tried to prevent last year. It's a shame. You want to pay everyone fairly, and at some point you're going to take from the kids if something isn't changed.
And so, I mean, is attracting necessarily salary? Is there something else that could be happening here in order to attract and retain people? Is that and so we would have to, do a survey and find out if there's something else.
Well, I think that was one of my motivations for starting the wellness committee. I think when you have pay equity, and we're going to do every single thing that we can and uncover every stone to figure out how to do that. But I also think it's really important to create a culture that is meaningful for people, and people are happy in their jobs, and there's a sense of community that's in Springs, that people get along and they work together and believe in what they do, and that there's something else that keeps them in our school district because they love where they're at. And I think we also need to come together and figure out what that is, and whether it's through the committees, conversation, through data and surveying. I know that you're a big believer in that. I think that's something that we need to do, and that we need to continue to make changes and make good on our goals in that regard as well, because as I think, of course, money is extremely important. People need to make a workable living. But as we learned in this Great Resignation, people know that there's more to life than work, and they're willing to leave to get it. And if we can solve that question here, or at least work on that question, make people know that we really are trying our best and that we're taking action for that we can do better with their retention.
During the superintendent's conference, October 1st, there's a group of school districts very similar to Springs getting together regarding what we had asked Assemblyman Field about doing a reserve for tuition. So it's just maybe 13 districts statewide. One of the superintendents is pulling us all together on Sunday at about 2:30 to discuss the issues that small school districts that send tuition kids to another district are facing, to try to get some leverage there from our assembly and from our commissioner.
It's funny you bring up the tuition. I've been thinking about this for quite a few years. We do pay. East Hampton charges a fee to send students, right? When we get paid for each student to go there.
Yes.
With the cost analysis, we kept it here. It wasn't that far off, was it? If we kept K-8, say we kept 9 to 12, right? In the school district, it cost me probably competitive or slightly higher than East Hampton, right?
I haven't even looked at
Right.
it.
So if it has been, I think it will be. I think we got to, yes, we got to negotiate with East Hampton for our salary we'll pay for our students. That's a real number, and it can't be changed unless you look at the school district. We can't hinder our budget on, like you did. You said, don't hold the budget on that. The charge is $25,000. That's what it is. It's a cost of living for us to send those students there. We can't change that. And there's no way we're going to change it until we have a high school here. We can't use it as a point of fingers. That's what's causing our problem. It's the cost of what we got to pay just to keep this building. We can't say, well, East Hampton's opening up. Whatever the charge is, the charge we agreed upon, right?
Yeah, we have a contract.
So it's a cost. We can't, we got to figure out what's going on here and what's going on and how do we get this funds? Where do we get the money from? And whether we got to, and I can say, we got to change programs or change things, we have to do that. What is our taxpayers and our stakeholders willing to do for Springs, or willing to accept, and willing to afford? I think the national data for Springs is 118,000. You think that's real? I don't think it's real. But that's what it says. So we know we're not going to get state aid. We're not going to get no special privileges here. We really, I think this is beyond my scope as a board member to figure this out. We need to hire professionals to do this, to help us with this.
Is that a question maybe for school boards if they have? I remember when I first got here, somebody looked at the state aid and they very quickly said there's nothing they can do for us. So I don't know if that's something you want to revisit again, but.
Well, we have to keep asking and everything, we already know that the lunch, that was something we talked about, unless people fill out that form at a very high response rate, we are not even eligible, and so that disguises our need quite a bit as well. So
Why can't we have like that? That irritates me that we can't get people to fill out that form. It seems ridiculous. I mean, the amount of paperwork I filled out as a parent for my child to come to this school, like, why is that form not in it? It's like if the school nurse is missing a physical, she's like hounding the parents to get it in by a
It's not
certain date.
required.
That's
It's
part of
not
it.
required.
No, but
I-
that group of parents who were interested in the advocacy and stuff like that, they had, they want to make a big push for that. So I think that,
The forms went out, but I can't require it. I
Right.
can't hold anything. You can't get your child's Chromebook if you don't, I can't. It's
no, but
federal.
we could do some kind of push to get people to fill it out if they're given what the reasoning is.
Do you
right?
want your taxes to go up, or do you want them to maybe stay the same for once? And that would be reason enough for me to take a few minutes to fill out.
Have those forms gone out already?
Yes, they did. You stamp the envelope with do not forward so that it's a double. I'm not spending money, wasting money, but I'm checking to see if people are living where they say they're living. So if the letter
Can you
comes
send
back,
them-
I can check
Can
residency.
we send them home in kids' folders for their parents to send back?
We can.
That has a high response rate, teachers are.
Can they
I
get
don't
sent out
agree.
electronically?
Yes,
And we should try that with
Yeah.
Parent Square, yeah.
but then they have to print it.
No.
You can't, I mean,
I,
I think you can send out an editable PDF that like someone would be able to.
it's just making it as easy as possible.
the concern is where is it gonna go? And even though my letter said it's for the district's use only, it's a trust issue. We missed out on another grant that I was gonna apply for. It needed 44% free and reduced lunch.
Need 44%
Percent of our population.
Needed
Huh?
for lunch. Like
44% of our population had to be free and reduced lunch to apply.
Do we think that we're actually at that rate? We just don't have the
I
paperwork
don't
to
know.
show it?
That's.
Should I open it up to questions? Okay. Okay. Christine Amanda's back.
I'm not saying this as a co-president of the teachers union. I'm saying this as somebody who's worked in special education. And I know that we need several teaching assistants right now. And in all reality, those teaching assistants will most likely be working in special education classrooms, not in kindergarten and first grade. And so I think that needs to be clear when we're trying to get them. So sending out information saying, hey, this is a great job, you'll have the same schedule as your kid is all well and good, but we need people who really will fit that need. Like this is a specific calling in a way. And I think that the people who have stepped up and done that and been with us for years in that capacity, throwing them a bone to say like, we really appreciate what you've done. Because I think that a lot of times we've hired people and then they found out, wow, well, I'm changing diapers. I'm getting bit. I'm in the thick of it. And so I have so much respect for the teaching assistants in special education specifically. And I would do anything to make them feel as valued and appreciated as possible. And when we're looking to hire, make sure that the people we're looking to hire know that this is part of who we are. And that it doesn't have to be a big, bad, scary thing that these things might be part of your job description, because you have support and you have help and there's wonderful people here who are willing to, step in and do these things. But we kind of need some niche people that, we were able to originally get quite a few people when charter closed. We need people who are going to have that, love and passion. And so I'm nervous that we're not really hitting the right demographic when trying to get teaching assistants. If we need them for special ed, we might need to reach out in a sort of different way to say, like, these are some of the things that happen. And, this is part of our school and part of our community. And we are proud of the fact that we have all these students and that we can provide for them. And then to look at how we structure things for those teaching assistants who are really kind of doing the meat and potatoes of real life skills things with their students, and make sure that they're rewarded. Not necessarily it's all about finances, but that love and respect is shown to them.
So you're suggesting that you're not just compensation, because I mean, you have these people, their all TAs are in the same bargaining unit. So how do you differentiate?
Right. Well, I'm not in their unit. I don't know how, I don't know how any of that goes. I know that one of the things, because a lot of my friends are teaching assistants, one of the things that they've said is, well, right now, if you're a teaching assistant, if you're hired, you're told to become a teaching assistant. Teaching assistants have levels, but you're not compensated, whether you're at level 1, level 2, or level 3. There's actually no reason for you once you're hired as a teaching assistant to go on to be level 2 or level 3, because the more you do in those levels, the more you're required to do continuing education, but you're not getting any more pay for that. So those are things that,
So these are sort of like steps, you're saying, but they're
something
for levels for TAs. Right?
Yeah. And so I don't know if there's something special that within that kind of framework that could be differentiated for people working in special education versus general education. I don't know all of those things, but I do know that the basic steps, we're in a situation where it's been so difficult to find teaching assistants that we've hired people on a substitute basis that don't have their teaching assistant certificate. And then we have people who have been here and have worked to get their level 3 teaching assistant certificate and have worked in special ed for the majority of their time and are, kind of overlooked. So that's my plea for the special ed system.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate hearing that.
I thought we had increases in TAs.
So they don't have steps. The last time.
No, so when you became a TA, then you went to like a level 3 TA. Was it?
They're not compensated, but in their contract, they do get reimbursed for going back to school.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yes. Okay. They just not.
Okay.
So this might be something to discuss, because if you have people doing additional education for that, and I think maybe it was originally not doing, I feel like maybe this was spoken about before, but having TAs is sort of, you want them to step up and become teachers ultimately. So if you're increasing the compensation at the TA level, are you discouraging them from going ahead and becoming a full teacher? And maybe that's a moot point. Maybe the people are stepping up to different levels. And I'm just saying this because I feel like this is a conversation.
No, this is a good conversation to have. I know I can clarify one part of it. So in what Pat was referencing with the compensation, that's for graduate school classes. So that does speak to the person who is a teaching assistant who wants to move up and become a teacher. And that is, but there are some people whose job in life is to be a teaching assistant, and they're darn good at it.
Right.
And the fact that they don't want to go to graduate school and become a teacher isn't a bad thing. They are doing the continuing education they need to have the different levels of being a teaching assistant, and I'd like them to be rewarded for that.
Okay,
You're
thank
also
you for
saying too,
clarifying
in
that.
the hiring language, also be more specific up front for the needs of the position, that it not necessarily as a completely roving position. There's intentionality behind hiring for the position, and then on the back end for retention, that possibly creates steps for those individuals who wish to remain a TA as their career goal.
Yes.
How many levels are there for
Three. I'm going to ask Lisa Janice what their levels are.
Okay.
She can get that from the thing that we belong to teach.
Okay. because TA compensation is something that we've talked about quite a lot, and I think this could be, what's going to be a good option to look into, to, yeah.
No, I think, what was I saying? Be upfront with the job in detail before you take the job.
Right, yeah, so if her, and, but
If we're looking at,
you did just, we hired some special ed TAs recently, no,
No, those are special ed teachers.
teachers, but,
We're short 5 TAs for September.
right, and are we advertising saying that some of them will be special ed positions?
No, we just advertise it as a TA, and it is usually a parent that looks at the TA position as the same hours as their children, the same holidays off, so that's how I framed it. We posted it on OLAS, which is for all teachers. So in years past, many teachers who were not able to get teaching jobs became TAs instead of subbing. Those were their 2 options until they got a teaching job. But what you're finding now is our substitute pool is down here. We're not getting substitutes. And we're not getting teachers, certified teachers who want to be TAs because they're getting jobs. I mean, out of our 4 new special ed teachers, 3 of them haven't taught before. I mean, this is what's out there right now. They're able to get actual entry level teaching jobs. They don't have to be a TA before they become a teacher. All of our TAs that were certified teachers have to become teachers. They are actually in teaching positions either here or someplace else.
the advertisement is become a TA, or we just, or maybe in the other committee meetings, you know, it's a discussion, people who are possibility to work with special ed, is that losing them?
I don't have
You just
that,
don't have the
I don't
other
have that language in there, so it's not like I'm losing.
No, I'm
them.
saying when you do the in-person interview. Because it might be, you know, maybe, you know, you advertise this, but you come in with TA, hey, listen, you know, we're looking to do special ed, are you interested in working with special ed? Or you just looking for TA, because if they're looking for TA, that is a good point Christine made, was you put them in a you're hard as a TA to be in a first and second and third grade classroom. Well, so no, you're gonna be good, especially if you want special ed, and special ed does have changing diapers, getting bit, and life skills.
We didn't even get to that point. 2 TAs that were recently interviewed
Well, it sounds like it's been in the past. though, right?
Yeah.
was salary, correct?
Yeah, I could speak to that. We brought them in at the time. We let them know it was most likely you're going to be a one-to-one
Okay.
assistant, and these are the qualifications. And it progressed. That was not something that was holding anyone back.
Okay.
It got to the salary, and that was it. We had 2 that wanted to come here, all on board, and then once we got to that part.
But maybe we hit like IGHL or someplace else where people have worked with people with learning disabilities as a different pool to search for teaching assistants.
If we could,
We learned from COVID to screen virtually, not just on paper. So our first question to somebody over the phone is, do you know where we're located? Oh yeah, I Googled you. It's 33 miles from Central Mauritius, not a problem. And then you tell them what the salary is, and they said, oh, I can't do it for that. Like, who's gonna drive out here from Central Mauritius for $24,000? It just,
Right.
so I don't want to waste the principal's time or committee's time, you know, so we learned.
Oh, it's a big elephant we have out there. We just gotta figure out how we're gonna go and figure this out. I mean, it's real. Losing staff members, salary and compensation, which is cost of living. But also in the same way, if TAs are stepping up, is there, but I don't want to sell that contract. You know, that's part of negotiation.
Right, so this is, we have to have this sort of conversation amongst the board at a later date in terms of that aspect.
Am I allowed to make a comment?
Well, you're here at the meeting, so if you want to recognize as Rachel.
Just being among the staff last year, the biggest thing that I heard wasn't so much salary, but it was scheduling and getting home and trying to make the train. I don't know if it's possible to consider an earlier start time. I mean, like we were saying that the train is here at 7. I mean, or can we work with individuals on, I don't know what the legality is of those contracts, but
Right.
that was from sitting where I was sitting last year, that was the biggest conversation I heard.
What's the discussion on that? I think we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
It's hard. Transportation is one of them. Well,
I don't know if we can work with individuals on that or,
well, no, transportation for students.
oh,
We did have to move the elementary grade level.
right.
And then and that's one of the issues I know right off the bat. And then
You're right.
you have staff and, who's gonna, if there's, change the schedule around, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna go to 7 o'clock for 7th to 8th grade, well, what teachers do that? So that's up to him, the schedule, how you schedule your programs.
The teachers have written another letter to the railroad to try and get a better time for the train to see if that's possible. So they are really advocating for themselves and trying to work out.
Right, that's good.
So I think the board should send a letter along with that.
It's a copy of
because,
a
yeah.
follow.
I will ask, I don't have a copy of it, but I will ask for it.
Could you make us aware of who they're sending it to and what it says? And
I have it. It went to Fred Beal and they already got a response back from him that maybe a year to 2 years, there is some money set aside to redo the tracks. So the issue is there's not enough tracks for the trains to come out here at times that they're needed.
So having it leave here like half an hour later, there's just not enough traffic.
It's the rails
Right.
actually have trains on it at that time. They're trying to get out here at the time that they can move trains back.
It's one track.
It's one track.
Both ways.
Or possibly offering like a incentive to carpool. I know some teachers that are living all in Manorville, try to do that as well. I don't know if we necessarily have to change the schedule, but if you guys carpool, then 2 out of the 3 aren't driving. It might be a relief that day.
Yeah, but several of our teachers do carpool already.
Yeah.
It's part of the public sector, but what you can do in the private sector. Conversation wise, that's one of the things. But it's a great idea too. But even then, be 5 late instead of 1.
There you go. It's one way of looking at it. Glass half empty, yes.
Get another glass.
Okay, well, those are some good thoughts, and that's what these work sessions are about, talking things in public and, getting to hear some ideas, so we appreciate that.
Unless we got drones, we just got the teachers in.
In rural areas, it's all online.
Yeah.
They can't find Spanish teachers, technology teachers.
And we saw how well that went with COVID, right?
But when you live in some of these rural areas, they don't have any staff, so they're plugging in and Spanish teacher teaching in a nearby town is the one educating the children in Spanish in the classroom. Because there are certain requirements, certain courses that are required, and when you can't get that certified teacher in there, that's what you do.
Any other input from the board at this point, or we will continue that particular
Yes,
topic at a
yes.
later date, certainly.
If I could just remind the community that the safety plan is up on the website. It'll be up there for public comment until the 22nd, where then we ask that the board adopt it so that it can get to the state education department on time. That is the district plan. It is not the plan that is specific to this building, and that information cannot be given publicly. So it's what is allowed by the state to be given publicly.
LTV, anybody else calling in about anything at this time?
We have no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? All in favor? Aye, great.